Hello, and welcome to the Woo Woo Gypsy podcast. I'm Taylor, your host. I took a little break there for a minute, was having a little minty bee time, but I'm back. So, our book this week is a nonfiction book, The Ghost Studies by Brandon Massullo. Not sure how to pronounce it. And our author is a clinical therapist and parapsychologist in Northeast Ohio. So the book is basically the science behind ghosts. And Brandon studied psychology and parapsychology at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland and has a graduate degree from the University of Toledo in clinical counseling and an undergraduate in psychology. So he's had 14 years of clinical experience working in the mental health field. So basically he knows a lot of ish about mental health and, because sometimes people will say that ghosts are a hallucination, so he knows a lot about that. In each chapter of the book, he gives little excerpts and stories and facts along with the scientific jargon. And it kind of divides the chapters up nicely and makes it flow well. Because if you know me, I am a shorter chapter girl, nice flow, a little bit of a story or like a personal thing to go along with, the section I always feel like is good and kind of helps you understand it in different ways, because sometimes the scientific jargon jumbles up my brain. It's like scrambled eggs. So the basis of this book is he breaks down his ingredients or what he thinks it is ingredients to a paranormal experience, paranormal phenomena. He doesn't necessarily call them ghosts. He calls it like a paranormal experience, pretty much. And so according to Brandon, the ingredients of a ghostly experience are psychological aspects plus changes in internal energy or bioenergetics plus external information acquisition equals a ghostly experience. If you're a ghosty girly like me, you know that the number one thing that you always have when you're ghost hunting is an EMF detector. I actually got one time for Christmas. Don't know what the fuck happened to it. I think I used it maybe twice and it scared the absolute piss out of me. And I remember putting it in a drawer and not sure what happened to it after that. Anyway, you use the EMF detector to detect electromagnetic fields. And we all have an energetic field inside us and like energy that goes in an energetic field around us. So people usually use that to try to detect the energy of a ghost. In this portion of the book, he makes probably, at least to me, the most insane mind-blowing thing that it's so simple, but I literally never thought of it. If ghosts need energy, because when all the ghost hunting shows, they suck the battery dry out of the camera and they kill the phone batteries and all this stuff because they need the energy. So if ghosts need the energy and they suck all the energy from the batteries and stuff, then why aren't there shit tons of ghosts at locations where there's high amounts of energy, like technology, like tech companies, battery factories, TV or radio stations, and so why aren't there more ghosts? Why isn't there more activity in places like that? Wouldn't they be more active during the day when we're using those items and when we have all of those items on, usually at the highest power? You'd think that there would be more energy for the ghosts to pick up during the day. It would just make more sense, right? Brian just drops that smackaroonie dooney on you, right? Then he goes into his little calculation thing of like the psychological aspects plus blah, 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 plus blah, blah, blah equals ghostly experience. The first bulletin point is your feelings. You need those intense, high energy feelings in order to summon the next part of the equation. So you need that jealousy, the rage, the grief, the hatred. You need those raw emotions, those high energy ones. Brian believes that if there's not a human around to give that first key aspect of the ghost experience equation, then there is no ghost at all, which is, I don't know, it makes you think. It does. Because I don't know about you, but I've grown up all around ghost shit. And in the ghost shows, people leave the cameras rolling and stuff, and they'll pick up a bear moving or a chair getting pulled out. And it makes you think, is he saying that that's not possible? That's people doing that? Or like what? You know? This next part is so sick in my opinion that he brings up. He equates the poltergeist activity that you experience, so like that chair moving, or the bear moving. He equates that poltergeist activity to psychokinesis and says, quote, humans under emotional distress utilizing psychokinesis. And this just blew my fucking mind because I was just listening to Morbid, one of the best fucking podcasts in the entire world. And they were, it's Halloween, so they were doing their ghostly kind of episodes instead of their true crime episodes. And they did one of this one house where stuff kept happening and it was like poltergeist activity, but the teenage son was suspected of doing it. And they were thinking because he was a teenager, he was going through puberty, there's a lot of emotional changes, there's a lot of things going on inside the body and changes inside the body. So sorry if you can hear that fucking garbage truck. I don't know why I chose garbage day to fucking record, but this is the time I have. Anyway, so they equated some of the poltergeist activity possibly being to the teenager going through puberty because all of this stuff is changing and maybe he's doing it and doing this incredible thing and not even realizing that he's doing it. It's not on purpose. In saying that, trauma could also, you could use paranormal and a paranormal experience as like a coping strategy, he says. And the flip side of the coin could be that this also makes you susceptible to paranormal experiences going through trauma. And he states a case study regarding a mother whose son passed away overseas in the war, and he had died of a gunshot to the chest, severe head trauma. And meanwhile, his mom was at home, overseas, feeling the same thing happen to her. And she heard her son say, "Tell my mom I love her." Is this telepathy? Is it spiritual? Is it a little bit of both? And this is where he starts blowing my fucking mind. Because, like, what? Like, you go through a trauma, you send out a message, and your mom hears you? So is this a coping mechanism? You're grieving the sudden loss of a loved one. Our body showing us a last glimpse of the deceased to help our psyche and to keep ourselves in check so that we can move on and continue to survive is like a coping mechanism. Or is it Earth's magnetic field and our own magnetic field, that extends outside of our body into the atmosphere, allowing those moments to travel great distances, those moments of trauma and you're sending out a distress message to somebody that you're close with, like your mom. I made a note here that during this section of the book, I kind of skipped around a little bit because it got real scientifical and he was kind of repeating a lot of things, I felt like, and in different ways, which helped me retain the information a little bit better, but also it was making me a little irritated for some reason. And also he was giving a lot of like not equations, but formulas and giving examples of certain things with a lot of figures, a lot of numbers. And my brain was having trouble like processing it, I guess you could say, because I learn hands-on, and just reading something, it's hard for me to understand it. So it was all these numbers and I'm like, I need this in a graph. Back to the cool shit. Emotions create bioelectrical charge, which moves outwards to our electromagnetic field and then further outwards into the universe. He then states that he believes that these two things can trigger an innate human ability acquiring said information from the Earth's atmosphere. So this is, the psychological aspects, the emotion, plus changes in internal energy or bioenergetics. You have that emotion and it starts changing, the bioenergetics inside you, the energy, and that goes to the energy outside of you. And so is the message traveling through space and in time, to the mom in this example. He then starts talking about how instincts are passed down from inheriting them. And we have unspoken information that gets passed down through the generations. And when he started talking about this, I was like, is this linked to common sense? Is how for me, something is common sense of, I'm going to use friction to create a fire to to catch these leaves on fire. That's common sense. Yeah, obviously. Or, I don't know. It just started to make me think of that. But this is called morphic resonance. And if you need help understanding that, he says to think resonate. It's like when something you resonate to, like I resonate to that movie. It's something you have a strong connection to. And quote, resonance in scientific terms is when one object vibrating at the same natural frequency of a second object forces that second object into vibrational motion. Everything in nature has a distinct frequency. Again, tying it back to that, did the mom and the son get on the same frequency? Is that what happened in that? Another example he gives is, which is like a non-human example, is a tuning fork is placed next to a guitar string, and the guitar string will start to move even though there's no one around to touch it, because that guitar string is going to get on the same frequency as the tuning fork. Or scanning through radio stations. You're changing the resonant frequency so that you can match a specific one. This could explain the transferring of information from one generation to another. Our species has a specific frequency. And this shows that our mind expands far beyond our brain and out into the universe, linking all of us together and linking us to the environment. They did a mice experiment where they trained mice how to do a specific task, and it was like by the third generation, the first generation had to do the task 300 times to learn it, and then as the generations went down, and like by the third generation, they only needed to do the task 15 times to learn it or something, which is insane. So again, full circle here. He like explains these different things in scientific terms in different ways, but basically is, like telepathy, ESP, remote viewing, is this all like connected? And I was thinking about my mom the other day. So an example from my personal life, thinking about my mom the other day, and then she calls me. Case in point, yeah, is that what is going on there? Was she picking up the signal that I didn't know I was putting off and subconsciously transmitting to my mom to like, hey, call Taylor because she's thinking about you. So when we're in danger, is that the same thing? We get a signal out to a loved one to help improve our chances of survival. Is that something that we don't consciously know that we do, but we do? He then speaks about Earth's ionosphere and storing all of the current and past events, emotions, and thoughts. It's just, the Earth stores all of that, and certain people can tap into this, and some people have access to this. Like, is that how psychics maybe, people can tap into that? I don't know. When you experience a traumatic or near-death, life-threatening injury, are you able to project yourself to a loved one? Like, as seemingly as an apparition, and sometimes your loved one is able to feel the sensations you're also feeling. If they're in the right state of mind, that's another thing he usually gives in his examples is the recipient of the of the message that the distressed person is sending out. They're usually in like a meditative state. So do you have to be kind of open-minded in order to receive the message? He then gives an example of a case study where a wife gets into an accident. She appears to her husband he was upset. He was in a heightened state, but then he calmed down. He started focusing on some work to try to distract himself because he hadn't heard from his wife in a little bit. And he's like, oh, she's out having fun, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't heard from her. I'm just going to try to chill myself out with this. And so did he have to get into that meditative state in order to receive the message from his wife that she was in distress? Well, let's get into haunted locations now. So what makes haunted locations unique? He starts off this section with a case study of a soldier that appears at the foot of somebody's bed or beside them while they're sleeping in a bed in a hotel. And he believes that this starts really with what makes the people that's more perceptive to ghost type happenings. Like, what makes those kinds of people unique? So there's environmentally sensitive people, and these people obviously are more sensitive to the environment around them. They're a little bit more affected than the average Joe by differences in the weather and stuff, for example. Not saying that these people are necessarily psychic and having a psychic sensitivity. It's a different thing, but they recognize slight changes in the physical environment and they're more predisposed to illnesses, and you might be suffering from allergies, chronic pain, migraines, fatigue, sensitivity to lights, sounds, smells, if you're one of those people that falls into that category. And it also seems to have a genetic predisposition. So if your parents, your grandparents suffered from some of these things, it's more likely that you are. And women are more likely too. For me, fibromyalgia kind of runs in our family. My mom has it. I'm pretty sure I have it. I'm not being diagnosed, but the symptoms are there. And when the weather changes, I can feel it like in my whole body. So fibromyalgia, migraines, IBS, those can also lead to hypersensitivity. That means it could mean you're hypersensitive. For women, the symptoms worsen during menstruation, which also happens for me. I can attest to that. Okay, so we go back again to what makes this location haunted. So maybe you're a more sensitive person, and that's what helps kind of get this being able to see this haunted, this apparition better. So that sensitivity is there. Check. Okay, what else do we need? Unprocessed feelings that can become stagnant in the atmosphere and almost embedding themselves in the atmosphere, creating something that feels like a presence. So when you're somewhere and you're like, oh, I feel like somebody is standing beside me, maybe that was some kind of emotions that were embedded. It's the deceased person's memories lingering in the environment, like holding that energy that happened during a tragic event, that keeps the haunting tied to this one place. He does state, though, that he doesn't believe that it's the traumatic event that imprints on the area, but more so the telepathic message that the deceased, or he calls agent, sent out during said event, which is imprinted into the environment. So again, not the traumatic event that happened, but the message that they were trying to get out to that person, like their person that they're trying to get to help them in that moment in time. And the message could be at the place that the deceased sent out the message, or it could be at the end destination that they were trying to get it sent to, possibly. And so the environmentally sensitive people are tapping into that final message. He gives the case study of a man who completed suicide in this man's home, and he saw the apparition of the guy, saw everything that he was wearing, all of the details, down to the nitty-gritty. And perhaps this guy is sensitive to the environment. Meanwhile, the other tenants who were at this location did not see this presence because they weren't environmentally sensitive. So I feel like that a lot of people don't believe other people because maybe they're not sensitive to that sort of thing, or being able to tap in to that kind of other part of our brain that maybe we're not so conscious of. He also gives a case study with a nurse who appeared at this apartment in the current resident was like, I researched everything. There's nothing that says that anybody passed away here. There wasn't a nurse who lived here. Could not find anything to tie this apparition to his apartment. He's like, I just don't understand it. Like the land, nothing, like there's nothing. So what he's saying is that maybe there is, that was the end destination of the message, and you're still tapping into that message. So maybe she was somewhere else. She could have been halfway around the world. I don't know. But she sent out a distress message to whoever was living there at the time, and you're intercepting that last message that she tried to get out. So maybe a haunting could be from the location, the origin of the message, or it could not be the origin of the message. It could be the end location of that message. He brings up another thing. So EVPs, a lot of times, again, if you're a ghost hunting girly, or boy, sorry, not trying to leave you out. But that everybody always captures EVPs. They're like, ooh, what's that? Like, did you hear that? Oh, let's record it. Whoa. So maybe when you're capturing the EVP, you're capturing part of that message, or you're tapping into that and getting some little bits of that last distress message, whether it was at the origin of the message getting out or the destination of the message. He also speaks about orbs and how most of them can be debunked. I'm not a huge believer in orbs. I am, but I'm not. I feel like a lot of times there could be different light anomalies and things like that. I'm not an avid photographer, but I've done photography for almost 20 years. So lenses and shit like that just catch things weird sometimes, and you don't even notice that there is a light anywhere. So that's one of those. And he always also says, he's like, I think that some of them are, true, but all of them, I don't know about it. Sleep paralysis. This was a crazy one. Sorry, that's not me farting. I'm adjusting in my seat. That sounded like a fart. Sleep paralysis. I have only encountered this once in my life, and I hope to God never a fucking again. And he says this happens during REM sleep, when our muscles are paralyzed, so we don't act out our dreams and injure ourselves or others. So you're conscious, but you're still paralyzed. So he doesn't believe that this is a supernatural thing. It's just that weird in between of dreaming and waking up, and that there's, more to it, but not more to it in this supernatural sense. And lastly, he kind of closes on kind of going back around that sometimes maybe people use ghosts as coping mechanisms, because often you see the ghost of a loved one, especially if they suddenly passed, and it's easier for your psyche to come to terms with it more so than if you didn't. Yeah, so you can get that like final goodbye. Anyways, okay, so to wrap all of this up, it seems like he's saying that humans are fucking crazy and we have all this shit that we can't even imagine, and things that we could tap into, like being able to move things, like we are the poltergeist moving things, and we have telepathy and can send messages to each other over insane distances. And we can tap into the Earth's ionosphere and the magnetic, fucking electromagnetic shit everywhere. And yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed this book. There were some parts that I was like, ugh, it's kind of dragging. And he kind of reworded things a bunch and just said it in a bunch of different ways. And he really backed it up, though, with a lot of scientific shit and, like, measurements. And, yeah, I just really recommend this book. It's not a super long book. Let me grab it and see how many pages. I think it was, like, 167. And then also the, like, notes and shit in the back. 168 pages. So yeah, that was The Ghost Studies by Brandon Massullo. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. This one I actually enjoyed, and it was really fucking mind-blowing. And I feel like I kind of repeated myself throughout it a little bit, but he also did that in the book, but it also made it stick in my brain a little bit better. So hopefully it does it for you. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. And as per usual, there's a few bloopers at the end. Have a great weekend, and it's good to be back. Bye. If you're a ghosty girly like me, you know the number one thing you need when ghost hunting is an EMF detector. Like every single ghost hunter has it. I actually got one time for Christmas, and I think I used it like once or twice, and it scared the fuck out of me, and I don't know whatever happened to it. But what the fuck is that noise? God damn. So he believes that if there is no, god damn it, I said so, fuck. Back to the cool shit. So he says god damn it, I say so